Evening. How are we all? Apologies for my general tardiness. I was in the shower for too long. Normally I'd blame Claire for talking too much, but it wasn't her fault this time. Just been one of them days. Everything's taken longer than I expected. Yes, I'm here. Here I am, finally. So we shall get cracking straight on it. Tonight I thought we'd look at the science labs. So let's get rid of my face. Something I've been wanting to do to make it not as generic as the rest of the ship, because every deck kind of looks the same. I wanted each area of the ship to have a unique feel. Like engineering has its own art aesthetic. I want the science area to also have its own kind of aesthetic. And I liked the idea of indenting these lab entrances and making them a little bit more showy. Because we have, if we zoom out, so this being C deck, these are all the labs, and all the labs open out onto the same corridor ring that goes all the way around. So I thought it would be nice if that corridor ring potentially could be wider. I won't widen it yet, but I think make it a bit wider than the rest of the rings on the rest of the ship, and make the science lab entrances themed for the lab that they represent. So we'll have like some fish tanks out the front on the oceanography lab, and some like interesting rock formations on the geology lab. Just things like that. Kind of make it visually obvious as you're going around the ring which lab you are next to. I thought would be a nice theming. And then we need to think about the layout of the lab itself. Obviously they are really awkward shapes. A nice square room would be much easier to work with, but I thought I'd make life difficult for myself and make them weird. So we need to have a think about where the equipment's going, what equipment we need on a per lab basis, whether or not we're having like secure areas for certain things, and things of that ilk. Can do, yeah. And I think the other thing, if we turn on the ceiling, something that C-Deck has is every single lab is open to space above, except for maybe these ones. What's under there? No, that's just the storage room, so that works out. Yeah, so each one of these labs is open on top, so we can potentially put some skylights in those and just have a bit more detail around the outside on the hull, because they don't actually have windows facing out to space. I did consider sort of putting some windows here so you can see all the way through, but I still might, but we'll see how we are with the lab equipment. But we can definitely put skylights in, which could be nice, and we'll have some venting equipment where we can vent the labs to space if need be, given that they are literally right on the outer hull. We can have an emergency button which just like vents everything to vacuum if need be in an emergency. And Claire was also discussing in the shower, as we do, having some emergency button that seals the doors, and have these doors a little bit more robust than the normal doors on the ship, so that if there's a contamination or some kind of dangerous thing, then we can conceal the door to the lab and make sure that it is not infecting the rest of the ship. Yeah. No, we're not redoing the ship. No. No. This is the fourth iteration of this ship, and yeah, we're not changing it again. This is more just interior detailing, just kind of the final polish, I suppose, to the design, because we don't actually have our lab spaces set up yet in any way. So as part of that, we'll tart up the entrances somewhat. Yeah, when we come to build the Pathfinder, and funnily enough, we discussed that in the shower too, we'll make sure that we learn all the lessons and all the shortcomings from this vessel and make sure they're all resolved in the Pathfinder. So things like not being able to seal off the main stairwell. Like the ship is open from top to bottom all the way through the main stairwell, and we've got no way of sealing it off in any way other than like the bulkhead doors, but vertically there's no way of sealing off one deck from another. So things like that are going to get fixed on the Pathfinder. No, we only do have the one door. Yes, I think an emergency exit might not go amiss. We got room for it, so yeah, we could maybe have this on these flat edges here, because each lab has a section where they have a flat wall. So we could potentially make an emergency exit there, which generally is sealed unless it's needed. Yeah, if we were to have an emergency exit and then have that sealed unless it's actually needed for something, we could potentially do that, but I don't know. The labs aren't big, so I guess we'd have to have a think about what would be preventing people from getting to that door. Yes, AJ. So one of the things we'll have on the front of the lab is we'll have a control panel where you can put in a code and it completely vent the lab to space. And obviously we'll have those controls outside of the lab, not within. And we'll make sure that it's well locked down so it can't accidentally be triggered whilst people are still in there. I suppose the other thing we need for the labs is like an airlock. I suppose that's something to consider, because when you have like in a hospital, if someone is like immunocompromised, for example, they'll have like an airlock you have to go through so that the air on the outside doesn't mix with the air on the inside. So we could do something like that here as well and make sure that we have an airlock on every single lab. So if something does break out and there is some kind of contamination, then people in hazmat suits can still get in and out, and materials and things can still be delivered without exposing anything. So yeah, I suppose that would be the first thing we need to build. It also gives us more use of this little wasted triangle here. I was going to use it for things like gas tanks for the room, but we can also use that for the airlock as well. Yeah, so one of the things we were going to put here was like CO2 scrubbers and things for each lab, so they can manage their own atmosphere for a period of time. Right, let's get rid of stuff that we don't need. So the nice thing actually of indenting this and turning that into an airlock is that we don't need to have a curved door. We can make that door straight, which will be nicer. It'd be nice if we could use this to square the room off a bit as well somehow. Just thinking about where the cabling's running and such. So yeah, I guess we'll run it down for the inner wall. So we won't necessarily have any cabling running through this bit here. It can come up and over from this side. Let's just start scribbling and see what we can come up with. I think first of all we'll just give ourselves an origin point which is kind of angled that way. There we go. Now we kind of have a unified direction to work from. So that's stepping back 2 meters. I don't think we'll go that far. It's probably a bit too much of an indent, so maybe half that. Just move that out the way a minute. I'm just measuring back a meter from where the ordinary wall would be. And I think we'll maybe split this into thirds. Not using that tool, using the other tool. That's weird. Where's the normal divide gone? Okay, we'll do it this way. Segmenting this so that I can kind of get an idea of how I want that to go across to there. So that would give us quite a harsh line, so I think maybe that, but then that's not really giving us enough in the way of space for some kind of decoration, so maybe that. Okay, so if we did something like that, and then we rounded that off, that would give us something a bit like that. Probably a little bit too many faces there, although if we do this one with 12 faces, because we're going to be extruding outward, so we'll need those extra faces, and then we'll do this one with less, because we're going to be extruding inward with that face. Okay. thicken that up because that's our wall. Hey, T-Shane. No, we don't have any software that can do that. I mean, we could probably do that, but no. This is all theoretical. Yeah, the lore behind that is that, especially with its really spindly nacelle struts, is that the framework structure itself has these conductors along it, so that when those conductors are energized, it stiffens like it's like contracting a muscle. So the structural integrity field is actually contracting all of the metalwork to hold it tight, which is kind of how that works. As far as I understand, and I think that came from the TNG tech manual, if I recall off the top of my head. I remember realizing once that ships in Star Trek are just a series of fields. They're like, you've got the structural integrity field, you've got the dampening field, you've got the FTL field, you've got basically just lots and lots of fields working in combination to hold this like metal blob together as it moves through space. And I also like that moment in Battlestar Galactica when they were talking about how, you know, the ship's spine is broken, that's it, she's done for. Yeah, one of the where was I going with that? Yeah, one of the things with shipbuilding is that like we're building a ship like we would using modern day techniques and technologies, whereas when they were building the Star Trek ships originally, the framework was more like an aircraft, I suppose, or like how ships used to be back in the day. With modern shipyards and the block-based approach for building vessels, I guess we have a manufacturing process for ships these days. We have a production line. We build pieces of the ship separately and then put them all together like Lego bricks afterwards. That's how we do it in the modern world. So the ships we're building and designing for the game are built using that kind of thing, kind of just projected forward a bit. So where we have people physically welding things together for the blocks for our ships in the modern world, we'll automate that in the game. So we'll have like AI driven welding rigs that actually construct all the pieces of the ship, and then make all the bits that are needed. Like even in the modern day, when we're building the blocks of the vessel before they get put together, things like the pipe work, the cable runs, plumbing, all of that's already there, pre-situated within the block before they all get welded together. They don't come in afterwards and do that. It's a fascinating process, and obviously designed to be as efficient as possible because they're built on computer. So the entire vessel is built in CAD digitally before they even start building it. So they already know where the pipes are going and all that sort of thing. Any luck, these will line up, which they do. That said, yeah, we will straighten that actually. So we explode these curves. Maybe from there. Should be wide enough to fit the door in. Okay, so there's our entrance, and then we can put some kind of not so much a planter, just more of like a decorative box there, or some kind of a shelf, like a planter, but not for plants, excepting for maybe the biology lab, like botany lab even. Just need adjusting there to make sure they line up properly. So, what with everything being measured out with a certain scale, it means everything we've done here, we component that up. We can copy that around to the other side. And it should fit perfect. Again, apart from those bits that just need moving. Yay for keeping everything standardized. So as I build out this side, because they're components, that one will build out at the same time. Potentially. I was going to go with clear doors like we have on A deck, just basically just plain glass, not that it's glass. And then we can have various like warning stickers and labels on them, along as the name of the lab on the glass as well. So like it says conference room on the conference room, we'll have like geology lab on the glass itself. Okay, so this needs to be an airlock now on the inside, in a way that uses the least amount of wasted space possible. Reasonably, yeah. It's, you know, we've got the drones sorted. Actually, I never showed that. In fact, it's probably easier to show you an engine. After the last Magellan stream, I went ahead and I updated the drone model a little bit and gave it some little trolley wheels, and just kind of just had a look at it and thought, where are we going with this? And I think we'll probably make them like little mini shuttles almost, obviously with their payload section that's removable. And I'll probably move this door. So as you come down this corridor from what is the science lab ring, rather than being met straight with a door there, we'll probably have a door one side or the other, and we'll move these bulkheads over a bit. Because what I want to do is have construction one side for making new probes, and then outfitting on the other. And I thought it would be nice where you have a 3D printer that prints the framework for the shuttle, and then it gets moved to the next platform, and that 3D prints all the engines, the tanks, the wiring and everything on the inside. So you'll have like a bare framework, then you'll see a bare framework with hardware in it, then you'll have another 3D print thing which puts all the hull plating and everything on, and then the final one kind of fills it with fuel, commodities, charges it, that sort of thing. And then it rolls off the production line ready to be used. And I thought over this side, if we have parking bays for various probes, we can probably fit 4, maybe 5 at a push across there. And then we'll have a gantry that goes above them. And then that gantry will come across and install whichever commodity section you want for each one. So if that probe needs to be configured for an oceanology sample, then the gantry will come across, remove any cargo that might be in it at the time, and then replace it with like the oceanography kit ready for it to be sent down. So that will handle configuring probes before they get sent. And then we'll have like an output airlock and an outgoing pad, and then an incoming pad and an incoming airlock where the probes can come in, get offloaded, and then we'll probably have the storage maybe in the middle. So we might have maybe retain that door there for coming in and accessing the storage room where things are being offloaded, without entering into the actual probe facility itself. So, you know, a scientist coming to grab something doesn't need to be going into the workshop, for example. Then we'll have a separate door for that. But yeah, we'll iron that out once we start thinking about where those things need to go. But yeah, we definitely want parking for multiple probes, and we can always have, I'd say, at least 2 per pad, because these pads can come further this way before they start going up the slope. So we could have 2 landed, ready to be serviced. You can have 1 waiting in the airlock and 1 being unloaded. So you can process at least 4 probes at once, and just having them, you know, coming and going multiple times. But yeah, that should be fun to start setting that up and actually having some probe handling gameplay going on. So I'd say that, given how far we've got with it so far, that'll probably happen reasonably soon. And then by extension, we then of course need the science labs in order to process the physical samples that these probes are coming back with. So basically all of CDEC is all kind of self-supporting each other. So it all kind of needs to be done all at once, because each thing relies on the other thing, which is why we are doing the labs tonight, or at least progressing them a little bit tonight. Yes, so per deck customization will definitely be a thing, and we'll roll out things like the engineering styling across all of the decks. Oh, I'm hoping I caught that quick enough. Are we back? Am I still here? Yeah, I had one of those NVIDIA driver crashes on OBS. This time I caught it quick enough and the stream didn't end. What was I saying? Stuff, yeah. So, yes, so per deck customization will definitely be a thing. So you can have, each deck can have different coloured walls if you want, different coloured carpets to help distinguish them. Okay, so that gives us a 3 meter by 4 meter airlock. I guess we'll need some like purge equipment in there, like a shower wash type thing. Maybe some benches in there. Room to take off like a hazmat suit. So the wall thickness would be that. No, Anasi, the update that's going out is going to be the VR stuff and things that we've currently got polished and working in the dev build. So things like being able to get the NPCs to explore star systems for you. That'll be in the update. But none of the half implemented stuff will be yet. So things like the planetary landings test, the shuttle test, none of that will be in. Like NPCs carrying cargo around, that almost certainly won't be in. So these are things which are actively in development, and they'll be coming out, over the course of the next few months. Once this update's out, again, we're just focusing 100% on gameplay. So anything that's in any way gameplay connected will be in future updates. Yeah, ship combat is something that I want to address reasonably soon. It's another one of those systems which needs building. So what I'm doing with everything right now is it's every aspect of planned gameplay which is going to require code. I want to get that code done sooner rather than later. So if we spend, say, the first half of this year just grinding out code and getting all the code aspects done, literally using grey box assets to test that code out with. Like we can just use like an asset pack gun or something just to test guns, just to make sure that the code is implemented, it's polished, it's working, it's performant, it works in multiplayer, and just get all that done. And then the rest of the year we can then spend actually prettying it up, actually doing the assets for that gameplay. But I want to get the code done first, just so that we can see where we are in terms of implementation. So over the coming months, I need to get the code in place for other ships in the galaxy, the code for being able to shoot those ships and have them shoot back, the code for spawning like derelict alien stations and things that you can board, which by extension is going to require a shuttle. So things like that, all those core systems for those gameplay pillars, we need all that stuff done before we start making it look good. Yep, no worries. There are two classes of alien species in the galaxy. We've got the handcrafted hero races, and those are the ones which are going to be part of the story. They'll feature in the single player campaign, and they're like the main races that you interact with in terms of the human race. So they're like the neighborhood aliens that we form alliances with and have trade deals with, and it's those big races. In Star Trek terms, it's like the Vulcans, the Klingons, the Romulans, that lot. All the procedural races, they're going to be like the alien of the week that you might see in one episode and then you never see them again. And the aliens of the week, the procedural ones will have fully procedural assets. They'll have kit-bashed ships, they'll have kit-bashed actual physical personas. Everything about them is going to be kit-bashed from big asset pools. The hero aliens, the ones which are always there, featuring in the story, they'll be handcrafted. So they'll have handcrafted ships, they'll have handcrafted physical appearances, and most of those ships and stations and things will be built with full interiors like we do with our human vessels, because those are the ones that we hope for players to be able to actually fly and use in the future. Whereas the procedural alien races, their ship interiors will be built procedurally. So I'm approaching those like Diablo dungeons. If you've ever played the Diablo series, like every time you enter a dungeon in Diablo, it's completely unique. It's completely procedural. It might use reused tile sets, but the layout's always different and the content's always different. So we're approaching it from a Diablo perspective. For me as a player, when I see an alien derelict and I board that alien derelict, I want it to be different from the last one I was in. I want it to be a new experience every time. So we're going to focus heavily on that procedural generation and make sure that's the case. No worries. Exactly, AJ, yeah. Yeah, reskinned humans with various noses and foreheads. So I'm just wondering whether or not we have this as a separate piece that kind of extends out, or do we have it? Give me that minute. So if that's our airlock coming into the lab, again, it's really awkwardly shaped. I guess we could have windows either side, and maybe even like a control panel on this side for controlling the airlock. Might need to extend it out a little bit if we need room for seating, or have it non-symmetrical, so we can have this side where we've got lockers for hazmat suits and seating and such. That's probably the sensible way of doing it, actually. Let's just give that a quick whirl a minute. Yeah, because we could build lockers across here, put some benches in for sitting on, have like windows and such, have the door there. We could have like an intercom here, so if this is a glass window, have an intercom panel, maybe some controls for there. We've got utility storage here anyway, so we can put tanks and things, maybe even extend that all the way across. Given the odd shape of this room, every time we square something off, we're going to have a little bit of wasted space, like there'll be like a wasted triangle there, which isn't necessarily the end of the world. Yeah, because we'd have something like that. So we're just extending the cavity on this side just into that space there. that would square that off. And then we can use some of these cavities for like storage space and such. I suppose the other thing we can do actually is actually square that off. How? Okay, so it's not exactly 45 degrees, so I thought it might be. Actually, if we lined it up with that wall, that means that door would then be exactly in the middle of a section here, which is nice from a layout perspective. Yeah, we definitely need room within the room for isolation areas. We need, yeah, a bathroom. That's probably not out of the question, because if we're dealing with contamination at some point down the line, if this room needs to be put into lockdown, then anyone stuck in the room is going to need facilities. So actually, yes, a bathroom's not actually a bad suggestion. And we can have that within the airlock as well. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. Yeah, just put a bucket in the corner. Yeah, anything we can do to square off this room more would be good. Obviously, having all this infrastructure here means we need to know windows here, which I was hoping for, but I think actual usability needs to kind of take precedence over having windows looking into the lab. Yeah, and then we can maybe do like what I said and put windows on this side. So the windows here would be looking out across the corridor and out the windows on the other side. So in terms of being able to see outside of the ship, you could see outside through the corridor, which is probably the best way of handling that. Actually, let's cut some holes in stuff, and then we'll test it actually in engine and see what it looks like. So I like the idea of taking the wall that we have here, extending that all the way across there. All of this should be one block. Yeah, so in terms of the manufacturing process, everything you see highlighted in blue, that's one chunk that's manufactured as one solid piece. So this wall is separating is not two separate pieces, which means that bit of framework there doesn't actually need to be there. So what we can actually do is we can move this over here. extend that across to there for a minute. Which means that in terms of layout and everything, that means this door is exactly in the middle of this wall, and I like that from a symmetry perspective. I'm all about symmetry. It squares off that end of the room nicely in terms of being able to fit things in. And then we can do the same here. So if we get rid of that a minute, fix that. If we can work out where our angle is. Why isn't it locking onto that? Oh, I see. Yeah, there we go. Just make sure that's perpendicular. It will make the airlock section slightly weirdly shaped, but it does square off some of our walls in the lab. Yeah, these will be 2 meter wide doors. I think all the labs are 2 meter wide. Yeah, let's just double check. Oh no, 1.5 meters. Yeah, look, actually, oh no, we will have. I was going to say we don't have space for that because of the windows, but no, we do because there won't be windows. Yeah, so this could be a 2 meter wide doorway, which would be good. I think bulkheads are 2 meters. Let's just try it and see. Yeah. Yeah, so that's 2 meters. So, yeah, in terms of stretchers, cargo, just moving equipment in and out of labs, we can give them a big door. So if we draw a line down the middle, then we need to go 100 that way, 100 that way. So we can adjust this here just so it ends there instead, just to make sure we've got that space. And we'll do them 2 meters tall as well, so they'll be a square. So that's the size of the door basically, 2 meters by 2 meters. Yeah, I think what we'll do is if we put the toilets inside the decon area, then like normally that would be sealed and this would be open. So I guess it doesn't matter which side is sealed generally. Although I suppose you'd probably seal the inside, wouldn't you? I mean, in terms of fitting stuff in, it would be better to have the bathroom inside the airlock area. So we'll just have to have it so that if the room is locked down, then it's the outer door that stays locked, and we only open it once that's been closed and this area has been decontaminated. Yeah, potentially. Yeah, so if we were to do that on this side, because if this is where the storage tanks and everything go. Yeah, the toilets being in the lab is if the lab gets contaminated and people are in it, then let's say there's a pathogen that breaks out, then the people in that lab cannot leave. And by virtue of not being able to leave, they're going to need some kind of facilities there. Yeah, give them a bucket. To be honest, I can, if I square that off, then that can be the bathroom there. And then we'll have suit lockers on the other side. That doesn't necessarily need to be angled there. It doesn't look perpendicular, but I'm sure it is. Because then we'd have a squared off edge there, which means we can put workbenches along it more easily. And then we're squared off here, so whatever we're doing here can be butted up against squared off walls, which is nice. So I guess the bulk of the equipment would be around here and around here, with windows there. So I guess we'll keep the area in the centre, reasonably open. And if we need some kind of foot traffic, an unobstructed foot traffic in and out of the storage room. That's part of the fun. I was saying that on one of the recent streams, that as much as we are designing this as if it's real, and we're going through and answering the same questions that you'd have to answer for a real ship that was actually doing this, at the same time it's a game, so we need opportunities for gameplay. So having a pathogen escape and infecting the crew, which we need to handle by way of the medical team, that's all gameplay. And if you remove the possibility of such a thing being able to happen, then you're removing the chance for gameplay. So we also need to think about it like a game and think, right, where can we turn this into some interesting gameplay? If it was absolutely foolproof and couldn't possibly ever go wrong, then that's boring from a gameplay perspective, because all of a sudden there's no opportunity for drama. So if we were to merge that framework and have that go across, then how big of a bathroom can we get into that space. I guess especially if we kind of ended it there. Yeah, so that's 2.5 meters wide, which is more than big enough for a decent sized bathroom. Yeah, I guess that's a UK thing. We call everything a bathroom. So we can turn that area there into our head. Maybe put a little window, porthole window there. Yeah, put some seating in, hazmat suit rack. This is the Magellan, our original ship. So the Magellan. What I'm doing is starting to flesh out the science labs. Up until now, the labs are just big open spaces on sea deck. So we need to start thinking about what they actually need to look like on the inside and what kind of infrastructure they need to be functional as a science lab. I think to make my life a little bit easier, I might make this entire section straight and just kind of blend that edge in a little bit. So I need to think about how this section sort of interacts with the corridor curve. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having an interestingly shaped wall within the bathroom. You can definitely put stuff behind it, tanks and such. Yeah, then I suppose, actually, if we're going to go perpendicular that way, then if we maybe line it up to that. good. Okay, that already is flat against there. It's funny, because of all these angles, it makes it look like this isn't perpendicular or 90 degrees, but it is. It just doesn't look it. It's optical illusion. So we could have this space here. If you imagine a bunch of hazmat suits or lockers or something at this end, which fits nicely up against that wall, then our bench can be there in front of it. And we've got the airlock traversal through there, bathroom on that side, have a little window on that side, and then we'll round off that edge across there. That's exactly 3 meters worth of airlock space. And as awkwardly shaped as that is, it does actually square off the lab, which in the grand scheme of things makes life easier there. So let's stick our bathroom door in. So all the doors are 2 meters tall, and we'll do 1.5 meter wide. It's probably a bit excessive, to be honest. SketchUp being SketchUp. Let's try that again. 275 down to the floor, and I can't select it. Alright, I'll do it this way. 200. Yeah, 2 different bits. $75. Yeah. 75. There we go. Now it's behaving. Or not. I'm going to assume that those faces are not absolutely coplanar to one another, so I will simply redo it to make them such. probably a bit more reasonable. That's a 1 meter wide door. Okay, so that space there becomes our bathroom, which I think is plenty big enough. Actually, if I use that guide a minute. Not a lot of room there for a bench. Might have to make it a funny shape. Or maybe just have it going along the walls. Might be easier. If having that angled proves to be awkward, I'll just straighten that off. And we'll just deal with the fact that this wall's not fully perpendicular. I don't think that would be the end of the world necessarily. It's a lot of wine. I don't tend to drink wine myself. I'm not really a fan. I don't mind a real ale though. Fun fact, I'm actually drinking Star Trek beer. Captain's Log, apparently. That's what Claire got me for Christmas. Yeah, just to prove the fact I'm not an alcoholic, he says, unable to speak. I got them for Christmas, and that's the first time I've touched them. They're not bad. Oh, that's interesting, AJ. No, I think we're all right because the nameplate is above that. So if we turn on the outer hull plating, of which we don't have very much. I know you are right, actually. It does go over the labs. For some reason, I thought it was up here on B deck, but no, you're right. It would mess with that. So yeah, so if we are punching through some skylights, we would have to do it like there probably, where the writing doesn't get to it, and then move the writing up slightly. Because we have the technology here, we can actually move that writing back and forwards however we want it, because I designed it such. I do need to sort out the kerning though. The thing I built, basically it takes the text of whatever you're typing, and then you give it a generic spacing between each letter, so you can space them out or squish them in like this. But it doesn't care about kerning, so which is why like the I has the same gap between each one as these ones do. So what I need to do is basically go through the alphabet and have kerning offset for each letter, which is going to be a bit of a pain, but it's the only way of fixing it. Random trivia. But yeah, on that note, actually, if I were to make the lettering go just on that ring there, like that, the letter spacing is not that much worse. Hugs the hull. Yeah, then we can free up some room for punching through skylights. That is indeed a SpaceX reference. I needed a name that was long enough to kind of push the limits of ship names, and that's the first one that sprang to mind. Yeah, I don't know how that got there. I was just randomly typing numbers and that came out. What are the chances? I also accidentally registered this domain name, just in case anyone's wondering. Completely by accident. I prefer using real world stuff. Anyhow, so yes, so if we were putting the window in the middle, or what would be the middle, once we've got the airlock out of the way, then that would place it, yeah, it would place it pretty much on this ring here, so we can definitely fit it around the lettering, so that's fine. And this hull paneling is the original hull paneling I did yonks ago. So this all needs updating anyway. So when I actually do the outer hull, I'll build the outer hull with this sort of stuff in mind, and it'll be cut round windows and everywhere it needs to be, and all that sort of stuff. Right, so let's get this exported and actually walk around it in engine and see how it feels. Oh, let's make a door first. That would help, wouldn't it? Get rid of these extra bits a minute. So that's the edge of the door frame. Right, okay, I'm going to have to do this slightly differently. So there's the width of the door in terms of away from the edge. So if we extend that out to there, and there, and there. Where does that go if we pull that across? Okay, that's not too bad. So, yeah, if we pull that across there. Has to go no more than that. Okay. Hey Delta. Did you just find the website? Ah. Right, that should give us enough width then to do the door. I suppose I do it from the bottom actually. Make sure that we're aligned. Yep. So 200, 100, 100, 100, and 200. through there. We should be alright with this. I try to avoid having an edge close to where I'm like rounding things off in case it overlaps, but we should be alright with that. It shouldn't cause us any grief. Right, and then the same on this side. We'll just extend these edges out. And then we'll see where the intersect is with this. That bit, and that bit, and that bit. And the same on this side. Of course, this one's going to be awkward. It's better. Let's try that again. Okay, it's more like it. Keep those handy because if we have another need for windows and doors, I don't have to remodel them, so we'll just keep that to hand just in case in the future. In fact, let's just hide them away and then I'll forget that they're there. Alright, so that would be... Oh, let's just make sure that's on that group. So although they look the same, these two are slightly different in that one of them has a corridor on one side of it, and then the other one does not, because it's open to the lounge, I think. No, was that not it? There's definitely something different about one versus the other, which is why they're separate actors. Oh no, that was it. Yeah, so this one's got a rounded corner here, whereas this one's got a junction. That was it. So yeah, so this side here has a different layout to this side here. That was what it was. So that's ring 2. Ring 2 framework. That one, yeah. Here's one I prepared earlier. Although looking at this, if that corner there is the same as that corner there, it doesn't actually need to be duplicated. Right, let's see how it looks in engine. Which one are you? Okay, so that's in the wrong place. So those panels aren't needed, and then that post-it can be moved over to there. And we don't need a class either. So what we'd end up with then, coming round here, is we'd have these alcoves with the actual labs in them, and go through our airlock into the lab proper. These guys need to get out the floor. Okay, so that feels a decent size for like hazmat suits and such, and that feels reasonable for a head. Doesn't need to be overly complicated, just a toilet, a sink, mirror, that sort of thing. Yeah, so it gives you a kind of prep area before you enter the lab. So if you're working with anything contaminated, at least you can keep the lab environment completely isolated from the rest of the ship, which is good. And we still got plenty of room for like equipment in the lab itself, which is good. And obviously that's the storeroom. Yeah, we'll have some kind of sprinkler system here, I guess, in the middle of the airlock. We'll look at that when we get to it, Anasi, but they'll use the real world designations, basically. See if I can find a picture a minute. I suppose this is kind of what we're talking about. So we'll have like hooks for stuff, we'll have air circulation, the actual airlock bit itself, except we'll have it kind of like a wet room so it can shower the hazmat suits as well. Some of them are weird looking. That's one that looks like it's surrounded by speakers. It's like blast you with drum and bass or something as you enter the lab. Seems to be a common theme. Okay, well, we'll do something along those lines. Makes sense. Yeah, as generous as this space is, it's still not super generous in terms of ability to move. So I think it's going to be fairly cramped for the most part. I think we'll probably have maybe half a meter either side of the door. Square off this floor section, and have maybe have angled sections here spraying stuff inward. So this is the area where you get sprayed down, and then we'll have suit lockers and stuff over here, and coat hooks and that sort of stuff. Yeah, the size of the door is more for the transport of cargo. So these are the same size as this door. So basically, we're mirroring the bulkhead door size through here. We could potentially make the door to the stores wider as well, for that reason. Just to make transporting stuff easier, so you don't have to squeeze through small doorways. Yeah, I think we will have labels. We'll have icons in addition to the labels, but yes. So we'll have, which one's this? Biology. So we'll have biology lab written on the door, but also with a label as well to indicate, some kind of icon to indicate this is the biology lab. So we'll need an icon set that covers all of the different labs, for sure. I think we might be missing a lab mesh here, because we've got side labs. Oh, it's there. I was going to say, I thought we were missing one. Yeah, so this one's going to need doing as well. And like the other one, this is different again, because this is the one that's kind of facing the seating and stairwell areas. This one doesn't have the bulkhead framework on it, so it's different again. Just realised I also didn't remove the door from this. Oops. No, not the whole thing, just the door. And the same with this one, because we don't want a door there anymore. Better. Let's line this up before we move it over, otherwise it's going to look weird. quickly fix that side as well. Looks pretty much spot on. Pop that in the group. Sort this bit out. How on earth have they ended up in the same group? Did I like just put the whole thing in there? Oops, must have. Right, so you are the forward one. Would be these ones. Yeah, we'll have something along those lines because it would be nice to be able to move cargo around kind of en masse. So having some kind of cargo trolley would be good. Think that one through. Yeah, we're going to have to ungroup that. Was it Control Shift G, I think? Oh, what a guess. No, that's not part of a group. Or replacing those anyway with the betterer ones. Oh yeah, I need to re-import that one, yeah. Right, so that needs to go. Then we need C-Deck snap guides. So we've got something to snap onto. And then we can copy that over there. Right. Oh, that's G-Deck. How have I turned on the right one? There we go. Right, and then we'll use our store to transform. Tell it not to duplicate. 210, 212, so that was 211. Okay. Orange 207. Yeah, we'll have to embed that one on that side as well when we come to it. This one isn't going to need an airlock or anything, because this is the astrometry lab, and you won't be handling anything dangerous here. And in a similar vein, I suppose, things like the linguistics lab, it's not going to be bringing anything on board which is in any way organic or dangerous, so that's not going to need an airlock either. It's more like the biology labs and such that really need an airlock. Right, so door removed, labs done, and then on this side, door removed, lab done, so we just need to do the side ones now. Yeah, if we had room temperature quantum locking, that would be awesome. Let's call it wing walls, just so we don't get them confused. You are quite right, it does seem to be missing a door to storage. I'll fix that in a sec. Ooh, Claire messed up. Bad Claire. Okay, that should be all of them. So we need to think of some interesting theming for the display at the front of each one. I suppose we could put little windows either side into the airlock. Save that a minute before we have any crashes. Yeah, I think we'll have glass doors anyway, just for the look of the thing. My plan was to have it so that there's a window above each of the display boxes, or planters, whatever we choose to make them. It'd be nice just kind of looking through into the lab, but not with all the other stuff we're putting on the inside here. We're not really going to have room for that, but I think some just little portholes at either side of the door just kind of opens it up a bit more. Makes it a bit more less like a tunnel. So if we were to use the same logic in terms of like the same curve around there, then what we could do if we grab that edge, what we want to do is align it to there. So let's see a minute. So if we take that point there, then we want to move it to there. lines up with that exactly then. So I suppose we could have it angle outward, because again we do have enough room either side of the door for it to do that. So we borrow our template again a minute. Just that one will do. Actually, let's keep that handy in case I need it in a minute. It's true, it's true. What on earth's going on there? Let's just simplify that edge a minute. just done this so it lines up with the existing geometry, so that when I come to start blending that in, it's going to be less of a hassle. I might actually blend it maybe to the middle to make it even less of a hassle. Should be easy enough to blend that side in. Thank you, Delta. Yeah, so it's kind of invoking what we've done for the VIP crew quarters, just with more of a sciencey flair, and then we will decorate those alcoves per lab. In fact, if we let's export them a sec. In fact, let's also fix these doors. Do with, yeah, if we get rid of that one a minute and get rid of that one, and if we borrow that one, stick it in that group, and we'll find that it magically appears in the other rooms as well. Oh, the other thing I was going to do actually is where we've got this curve here, I want to align that so it's like aligned with that curve. So if we grab ourselves our middle, we can line that up exactly with the middle of the curve. It kind of feels better that way. There's no real reason for it other than feng shui. To thicken this wall as well, actually. That needs to have its usual cavity going through there. Okay, so that's the aft one. That's the forward one. Yeah, it's very important. And the wings one. All of which are ever so slightly different. one of the challenges actually is coming up with what to put as decorations for each of the labs. I think if we maybe have like a bit of a gravel base to it, not unlike what we did for F deck. So if we pop in the F deck interior a minute. So we've got kind of the pebbles, and then kind of littered the pebbles with some engineering adjacent stuff. We could do something similar, but maybe using maybe some white pebbles rather than dark ones. In fact, why don't we do exactly that? So if we... Is that just a material? Yeah, it is. So how much did I set it up? Yeah, great. Yeah, it's got everything I need. So let's make an instance of that. Yeah, true. Although we'll have hydroponics for that. Let's just experiment with this one for a minute. So if we give that a different material, then we've got something to work with. Oh, that's good to know, Cloud. Yeah, that's great news. I think the only thing stopping us from getting verified is literally just the controllers. So once we've got the control input working, then we're good to go. Oh, weird. Now, I know it was using Proton, because I noticed on my Steam Deck, when it was loading up, it said something about initializing Proton. So I thought, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, well, there's other things that we'll have growing in some of the flower beds. I think it would be quite amusing to find a certain plant growing hidden at the back somewhere. One of the enterprising lab geeks thought it would be fun to grow some special weeds. Yeah, same. Yeah, when you said you were running the game using the Steam Deck as the server, I thought, that's madness. But yeah, apparently it does work, which is weird. Where is that light shaft coming from? we can have pebbles in there like that, and then use that as the base for the things we're displaying. Actually, if we turn off our ambient light a minute and put the ceilings in properly, just so we can see what it looks like under actual lighting conditions. Okay. Maybe not quite that white. Have like a little bit of colour to them. It's better, they're not quite so shiny there. So biology is an interesting, an easy one. No, not biology. Botany. Botany is an interesting one, because botany can just have plants. And geology, arguably, is an easy one too, because geology can just have rocks. Yeah, each and every one. Hey Livewire, that's really cool. Yeah, the ships in the Starter System are like, they're the benchmark to work from. They're completely gorgeous and I love them. I would love to be able to create vessels in that much detail. Holy rock. I'll remodel it if we do, but yeah, it might have something similar to that. What other rocks do we have knocking about the place? I'd rather use the Megascans ones because they're much higher quality. But I will probably leave Claire make a rock garden here because my rock garden skills are not great. But yeah, we'd have something like that. So a rock garden of sorts outside the geology lab. So lovely lunar lumps. Yeah, so as we're exploring the deck and as we're wandering around, if you're looking for a specific lab, then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, that's the geology lab. You don't need to go up and read the label on the door. You can see immediately that's the geology lab. It's got that visual distinctness which is different from every other doorway on this deck. So it's immediately recognizable. And it's also good for wayfinding as well. Because I find it's easier to find your way around the ship if there's lots of visually distinct things. Because you can be walking around and like, I recognize that rock structure, so I know where I am now. So we need kind of that kind of visual cue. Material science. We just need like girders and bits of metal. Where's the botany one? Is that the other side of geology? I can't remember now. See, this is why we need stuff out the front so I can remember what's where. Right, so biology. So that one must be botany. Yeah, there we go. Right, let's export those other ones a minute so that we've got the pebbles. Oh, for sure, yeah. So there will be a big red button you can mash on the wall for setting an alert condition within the lab. So what we'll have essentially is like an emergency process for each lab. So if you whack that big red button, then it's going to seal the door and run a non-life-threatening decontamination procedure. And then once that's been done, it'll be up to the decision of whoever's in charge to decide what happens next. Another cool idea we had actually is where's all the canisters, right? So these little example canisters we were mocking up the other day. So again, I was talking to Claire in the shower about this, as we do, and we were talking about what happens if you've brought something up from a planet's surface and some kind of contamination's been detected, or the thing is suddenly doing something bad that you didn't expect. I thought it would be nice if these canisters, to begin with, are like hermetically sealed. And so, hang on, where's the probe room? So here's a probe, and it's got the cargo in it. So this is what comes up from the planet's surface. You've got an isolated canister. It's got a sample inside, which you can see because it's clear, and you take that to the lab, and you have to run it through some kind of machine which does like a contamination check on that sample before it will allow you to open it. So you know that it's safe to open to a point, because again, we don't want it to be perfect, because we want the opportunity for failures to happen. Failures mean gameplay, failures mean something to do. So, you know, we want that drama, we want that chance for something to go wrong. So we'll probably have levels of pathogens which can exceed the skill level of your science team. So the idea is, as you as you get samples, as you perform science, you're skilling up your science department. Now, if there's a pathogen, which is, say, tech level 16, and your science department is like tech level 12, for example, then you won't have detected that pathogen because it's beyond the tech level of your current level of science ability. So that's where you would think, everything's cool, we can open this container, and now you've exposed the crew to a pathogen, and that pathogen is now spreading throughout the ship. And that's basically gameplay. That involves the medical team, maybe it involves the science team, and there's a problem there to solve. So drama ensues. But it would be really cool if these canisters, as much as they're like this hermetically sealed life support biome that keeps whatever's in it alive, it also has a built-in incinerator. So if, like, I had the idea of having a grow light in the top, so the grow light keeps a plant alive, and it will have its own kind of water supply, and it can mist the plant, and it will keep the plant alive with water and light for as long as you need to within this canister. But if you find out that that plant is deadly in some way, it has some poison or pathogen or some reason you don't want to keep it, then you can press an emergency button and this thing just suddenly fires jets of flame down and kind of incinerates whatever's inside. So we thought that would be quite a cool emergency process that we can do like within the sample containers themselves, which would be quite good. Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, we can't have everything go to plan 100% of the time, because that's just boring and predictable. We need to have drama. We need to have room for things going wrong, because it's things going wrong that create gameplay. So that's those ones and those ones. Which ones I missed? This one. Well, that's the other thing. So using plant matter as a food source on the ship, if we're using alien plants as our upgrade path for the fuel supply for the crew, so you're taking the plants you brought from Earth, which have an average nutrient density and average growing speed, and then you're replacing that with an alien plant which grows quicker and is more nutrient dense, then all of a sudden that's a direct upgrade for your plant and food supply. But if you didn't do your due diligence on that plant could have some kind of poison. It could affect the crew in some way. It could be a hallucinogen. It's something that your science team didn't detect during the due diligence phase. So you end up causing a problem for the crew by swapping to this new plant. And that's the kind of organic kind of cause and effect that we want to implement into the game. So everything you bring aboard the ship can help or hinder in different ways. Okay, so where are we? We also need to finalize the actual purpose of some of these individual labs. Because I don't think we actually nailed down what they're all going to be. Right, botany. Let's just grab... I made these plant packs yonks ago, and like not all of them are decent assets. Some of them are quite horrendous. This one's not too bad. This is Claire's job, so I won't steal her thunder. Also, she's better at it than me. Two tulips that apparently hate one another. Anyway, you get the impression. So yeah, so we'll plant up the botany one, make it look all lovely. Lots of lush plants. We'll stick some plant lights above and such. Yeah, then each one of these labs can have stuff that's relevant to them outside. I wonder if I've got stuff like that. Why is it glowing? I'm never a fan of stuff for sci-fi where, in order to make it sci-fi, they make part of it glow, and now it's a sci-fi object. You need to be a little bit more inventive than that. Chemistry. We should have like a child's chemistry set there. But yeah, you get the idea. Right, so I suppose we've got about an hour left. So if we let's get the doorway done, maybe on both sides, and then start paneling this back up so we're not leaving this exposed metal. I think we'll raise this up a bit so that it's the same height as the handrail, so we can have the handrail attached to it. Thanks, AJ. Yeah, I mean, we're still refining the full gameplay loop with that, and we know again at a high level how this is going to work. You know, we know that the upgrade path for the ship is driven by the science you perform. The more science you perform, the more things you unlock. The more you're pushing that upgrade path. Every part of the ship is improving continuously over time because you're constantly doing science and constantly unlocking new things, and that will have a direct impact on your ability to explore the galaxy, because there will be tech levels randomly across the galactic space for all the different aliens that are spawning. So when you rock up to an alien system and there's an alien living there, then the technology of that species is going to be more or less than you, depending on how much science you've done. So you could have a highly aggressive species which basically drives you out of their system aggressively, whereas like a few weeks later, after you've researched some more stuff, got some more tech, you can now go back and kind of stand toe to toe with them on their own power level. So there will be areas of the galaxy where you can't go until you are strong enough and capable enough to be able to fly through that space and defend yourself from what is more technologically advanced, more aggressive aliens. But that will happen organically throughout the galaxy. And when we're generating the galactic space and we're generating those alien species throughout it, we'll probably use some kind of a noise function to have like a gradual ebb and flow of both aggressiveness and tech level, so that it's not just going to be a complete randomization of tech levels and aggressiveness. It's going to be gradual ebbs and flows, which will create these kind of regions of the galaxy where the more you delve towards that region, the more and more difficult it will get for you with the species that live there, which will it will lock out those parts of the galaxy until you have generated enough science to be able to upgrade your ship enough to be able to cope with going there. So it creates gameplay, essentially. It creates a purpose behind upgrading your ship, because it creates that gateway to that area, if that makes sense. I've literally never heard of it, Gabriel, so no. Everywhere, Max, everywhere. Yeah, I've never heard of it. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, to be fair, most of my kind of, I guess my influence when it comes to aliens and stuff within the game is from Babylon 5. I've always been a huge fan of Babylon 5, and that's kind of my go-to when I think about how aliens would be for real. I really like how alien races in Babylon 5 have this quite large gap between capability levels and also ages. So you've got literal ancient races that have been around millions of years, longer than the other races in the galaxy. And when you think about the galactic timescales and the brief window that humans have been around in a technological sense, it's literally a drop in an ocean in terms of timescales. The chances of an alien race being anywhere near us, both technologically and physically, is so minute that shows like Star Trek and Babylon 5 and pretty much any sci-fi are completely implausible in terms of how they present the galaxy. And to that extent, so is our game. The way we're building the galaxy is completely implausible, but we're going to try and cover that in the lore a little bit. But we do still want vast differences between the ages of species in the galaxy, because that's how it would be. Yeah, Babylon 5 is easily by far my favourite sci-fi series. You know, as much as I love going back and rewatching Star Trek over and over, I enjoy Star Trek, but I absolutely love Babylon 5. It's just, there's something special about it, which Star Trek just doesn't quite capture for me. I think it's because it's, you know, Babylon 5 also has that kind of esotericness about it. Yeah, don't get me started on the galactic barrier in Star Trek. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like, was it Discovery? I think it was Discovery, where, like, when they get to the edge of the galaxy, there's this weird barrier and weird space. It's like, have they never looked at physics before? Like, there's literally nothing of the sort there at all. It's just empty space. I'm not sure why it's decided to split this face, because it should literally be coplanar with that. It's more like it. The galactic seed space uses 128-bit precision. So we're using 128-bit seeds driven by the vector coordinates of each star. So each cubic light year has a seed, and then that's driven by the X, Y, and Z for that cubic light year. And then that seed generates the star system itself, but then each planet within that system has its own seed, and that is a 32-bit seed. So there are 2.5 billion unique seeds for each planet type. Which means there are 2.5 billion unique Earth-like worlds, for example, and then there are 2.5 billion unique rocky planets. So when you spread that over the galactic space, there's probably going to be a number of identical planets out there, but they'll be spread across the entirety of the galaxy. So, you know, good luck searching through 100 to 400 billion stars before you find them. Yeah. No, once we add multi-stars, it'll be fine. We don't need to touch anything about the seeds or the generation for multi-stars. So that's the door track, and then that's the gap. So yeah, about 7.5 centimeters per one. Yeah, so this is where it's going to get ever so slightly awkward. Because of the closeness of this edge. So I think what we'll do is move both of those out a little bit, just to give us that room, because we're going to need, we're going to need a full inch on that side. So just move that out just a bit. Actually, let's measure that first. So if we copy that as our marker, and then get rid of that, and then paste our marker back in, and we'll just extend that to the marker. Maybe a bit further, yeah. Just gives us that breathing room around that edge. And then we'll do the same here as well. When we expand that edge out, we don't want it going over over this edge in the geometry, because then it will mess everything up. Yeah, we've got the orrery map on the bridge, and we'll be expanding that as well. And the other thing is that I want a non-orrery overview, or rather a non-scaled overview, so you can see exactly what's within a system without having to zoom in and out of an orrery map, which I think is needed. SketchUp being SketchUp as always. said, I don't even need that one on that side. Yeah, I forgot to do that edge. Hey Mike, good to have you back. Okay, is it finally happy with it, I wonder? Apart from weird stuff, yes. Sorry, Delta. Yeah, not too bad, thanks, AJ. So the main bug that I need to deal with at the moment is the general weightiness of the sensors. So we've got obviously 4 distinct sensor modes, and the problem is all 4 modes are managed by one state file that covers the entire sensors platform. So every time you press a button on the sensors, that state file gets replicated so that all the clients know what's been pressed and what to display on the screen. The issue, of course, is that that's 4 sensors worth of data that we're replicating for only one particular sensor mode that you're looking at any one time. So what I need to do is split that up so you've got a state file for each of the sensor modes. So we're cutting the bandwidth down by 75% because you only actually need to worry about which sensor mode is obviously active at the time. So we'll probably have like a high level sensors state file that basically says like which sensor is currently active at the time, along with some other high level stuff that's not an issue to replicate. And then the actual nuts and bolts of what's happening on the screen, we'll store that in a separate variable and we'll replicate that separately. So hopefully that will dramatically speed up sensor performance in multiplayer. In single player it's fine, it doesn't matter, but in multiplayer that's what's kind of slowing it down. Remember how far down I do that normally. So it is the full width of this, which means that needs to be so we need to bring that down there. that's exactly 100 on the width of the door, which means the inner door track needs to be at least double that. Yeah, that means go 100 that way in order to contain the door when it's open. So, same this side, that just covers that. And then room for the door to open. We're going to work on that in isolation. Realise I've done that the wrong way. That's one half of the door track. We can just smooth that off. Don't need that bit. And don't need that bit. Getting there. Actually, we'll take that, so we can use the same one over on this side for this door frame as well. Right, so that's the door track. That's the door frame. We just need to make sure that this one lines up as well. It's yeah, it's quite often that Claire will tell me to stop messing with stuff and get on with some real work. Her usual one is like, do you really need to focus on it that much? Is it really, does it need to be that accurate? To which I always reply, oh, duh. This is me we're talking about. Let's make sure I've got all those corners done. Yep. One day, Seeker, one day. Uh-oh, I done broke something. Fixed. Yeah, so the reason we don't use doors that are this wide normally is because they will protrude through like window frames and things. So like this door is like literally butting up against the brace that goes around the corridor walls, so it like cannot go any further. And the same here with this door, like it cannot open any further than this, because that's where the wall ends. So this one has the luxury of opening a bit wider. Although we can bring the ends in a little bit, like we've done with this one, just by having the door not open fully to the extent, and just have it open to the edge of the curve. And it kind of also avoids the trip hazard a little bit of having a curved bottom by having the door stop there. Also, it's nice to see the door overhanging slightly. Just visually, having a bit of the door sticking out just feels a bit more realistic than having it completely disappear. See you, Binary. Have a good one. Right, so in order to save myself headaches in general, I think what I'm going to do is copy that over here. On there. Pop that one there. Sorted. In fact, I can cheat even further by simply flipping this one. That'll do us. Saying that, we're overlapping having the thinger. So let's just move that back a bit. I see what's going on. Okay. Same problem on this side. Actually, having the width of the door track there also helps us to centralize it as well. So we'll have that curve round and just maintain that wall thickness all the way down there as well. So it means the bathroom's going to get a little bit narrower on that side, but not extremely. Okay, let's get that exported and we'll have a look. Hey, Dongo. Export all three versions because they're all slightly different again. Okay. Right, it's starting to look more like a thing now. Do. Actually, one thing we do need to do with these ones is just go into modeling mode. Well, I was saying that it is bugged at the moment, so I want to do face weighting on the normals so that we get crisper edges. That usually messes up the texture assignment. But not today. Today we are fine. But I don't know whether you can see the difference, but those edges are a lot nicer, a lot sharper, and the flat surfaces are flat, like they should be. So if we go to one that hasn't been done, one's good actually. Yeah, this one. So the edges just aren't crisp. And that really sorts them out. Okay, so despite the addition of the airlock area and the little bathroom, which has its own little light, yeah, that's we've still got a decently sized lab, which is nice. Let's just give that a light in there as well. But I did that on the wrong level. Yep. Yeah, there we go. I shall do that very quickly for the rest of them. Shelf on that one. Thank you, Max. Very much appreciated. I love the way that the global illumination kind of floods out the doorways now. It's always nice to see. That's weird. Why does that lab have no lighting? Thank you, Festus. Cookie snack pack sounds nice right now. Me and Claire are on diets, so yeah, the food cravings are strong. Although I do normally have like a little cheeky post-stream snack. Right, that'll do for now. Shed some light on things. Okay. Well, barring any craziness, I'm just going to click the output log in a minute. Oh no, that's good. We can do that. Normally that messes us up. I will save everything, and we will go for a package. So, assuming that that completes without any issues, I'll stick that live on the dev build, so everyone can go and poke around the new stuff. What day are we on? Wednesday, isn't it? So, yes. So, next stream will be Friday, which is nice because Friday is do whatever I want day. Haven't quite decided what I want to do on Friday yet, but I'm sure it will be something fun. So yeah, have a great rest of the week, and I shall see you on Friday for interesting shenanigans. Okay, bye for now.